Mic check. Welcome back to another episode of the Second Half Podcast. I'm your host, Jabari Saunders. We got another incredible guest right here. We're sitting here in the Warren Buffett room at Ariel Investments. Before we even get started, make sure you hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. And now we're going to get right into the conversation. I'm excited for this one, guys. Not only is he a 7-year retired player in the NFL, he's also, I believe you were a co-MVP at a Motor City Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Had some accolades in there, right? You got that in there. In addition to that, he was a former president of the Washington Commanders. So timely we're having this conversation. But he's made an incredible jump and transition into his second half. He's a father foremost that we want to definitely give him a salute to, because we got to talk about these fathers that are doing great things. He's also the managing partner and head of investment for Ariel Investment here for the project level. So my man, Jason Wright, appreciate you jumping on the podcast, man.
Great to be here, man.
No, thank you. Thank you. I mean, just we had a great conversation before, but let's go back, man.
Yeah.
Like, where did the journey start for you?
Yeah, well, at least with football, it was with my dad.
Okay, all right.
So my dad was a civil rights activist turned chemical salesman. He was working for Dow Chemical. Sort of hit a ceiling on what he could do for his family and wanted to have a life for us. And so he took a big bet, took out a huge loan, bought a state farm agency, and started going door-to-door selling insurance. Okay. And so he was a community guy in the community, and like 10 years in, his business really took off. And he somehow, while building a business, when I know what it takes to do that grind and facing all the doubt that you face personally and from your family and others, he was still able to be present for me and my siblings in all of our sporting events and school activities and all that. And so he was our football coach.
Okay.
And my dad's competitive. So he's like, if I'm going to have a Pop Warner team, we're not going to be losing like those first few years you were in Pop Warner.
Of course.
So my dad would go to track meets all around Southern California, where I'm from, and he would find the fastest athletes, the most athletic folks that he saw there. He'd walk up to their families, and no matter where they lived, he'd be like, you're going to come play on Diamond Bar Pop Warner football. Okay. We're going to drive you out to Diamond Bar. We're going to get them to practice. We will find a way. It's actually cheating. Because you're not supposed to.
You're supposed to recruit.
You're not supposed to recruit.
Right?
You're not supposed to break your jurisdiction. But my pops does not care.
It was like, I'm putting this money up. I'm investing in this thing, so we're gonna make this thing work.
and so we ended up having this great experience where my dad became a father figure and mentor to so many young men across Southern California, and we had damn good teams. So we did really well towards the end of our time there. And at some point, there were at least 20 of us playing Division I college football from our Pop Warner team.
Wow.
At least 20. Might have been more.
Yeah.
Might have been more than that. And then at some point there were 7 or 8 of us in the NFL at one time.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you guys had a nice
we had a squad.
Yeah, you had a squad.
We actually should have won more games. Actually, I come to my dad sometimes like, how we lose any games?
Yeah.
How we lose to anybody? But my dad was the sparking influence for me with football, and he taught us all. Not just me, because he was a father to many. He taught us all work ethic, because all the importance of the intellectual side. We had film study.
Yeah, wow. At Pop Warner?
We had film study in Pop Warner. We'd sit in my house, offense and defense nights, in my parents' living room, watching film, studying film. So taught us the intellectual side of it. Taught us about values, the way that he would punish the whole group for the mistakes of one. He taught us so much that my dad's the foundation for so much of me, but certainly when it comes to football in my career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something special. California is such a melting pot, as we were talking about earlier. You got, Georgia's, the Texas, all these other states that have, and of course, California, you got Mater Dei and Inglewood and DeMatha, all of these. What did that next level for you? Obviously, you're playing Pop Warner and you're having so many skills. Like, what did that mean for you to kind of hit that next level in high school?
High school was great. I mean, my time, mid-90s in high school football in Southern California was a hot time. Football and track were out of this world at the time. So in track, it was like Long Beach Poly and John Muir High School, and those guys also played football. You had Mater Dei was good then. We were quite good at Diamond Bar High School. You had a ton of talent. Yeah. In fact, there were a bunch of guys I played against in high school that I played with and against in the league. When I got to the league. In fact, the squad I was on in the California-Texas All-Star game, the Shrine Bowl that year, at the end of that year, I think almost everybody on that entire field went to the league.
Wow.
At some point, touched the league at some point. It was wild. It was a wild group of folks. It was a wild group of talent, but it was good for us because and at least at my high school, because of the values that my dad, the other parents and coaches had brought us up with through Pop Warner, we were great student athletes in high school too, which sent a signal to folks that they weren't expecting, especially those of us that were black and brown. They did not expect us to be academic high achievers alongside being excellent on the field
as well,
And it kind of threw folks off. It kind of threw folks off.
So your program, your dad's program, let me say, he was kind of like the one that, you hear about the Snoop Dogg programs that he has. You got, Dion when he first started the whole Under Armour thing. Like your dad was kind of one of those first pioneers to really get the ones going and get the engines going.
It's funny actually. Snoop moved to my hometown.
Really?
In the middle of when I was in high school.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And so he lived in like the nice part of my hometown, the gated community in my hometown, and he would still ride his bike through town. Like he was in the hood. It was great. It was great. I don't think he does that anymore.
Hey, that man did not code switch or change. He is who he is.
But the football program he created was right there next door in Chino Hills. It was the next city over. Gotcha. And so he pulled on that same talent, and he definitely built that same kind of engine that was building well-rounded kids. But he did it at scale because he's Snoop.
Yeah, of course. There's no restrictions or limitations or anything like that you got to deal with. So Snoop, just let him go and do what he wants to do.
That's right.
No, so of course you played at the highest level, right there. We'll get to that point. But high school, you're competing, you're Shrine Bowl, All-American, all of those different things. It's time to choose a school now.
Yeah.
Right. We talk a little bit about Northwestern, but what were kind of the ones that were knocking on your door, and then walk me a little bit through that recruiting process?
Northwestern was not top of mind for me because it wasn't a huge brand in Southern California. Yeah, and Northwestern hadn't had a lot of on-field success prior to the late '90s. Yeah. So my parents helped me focus my attention in the recruiting process because left to me, I knew like Marshall Faulk had just been at San Diego State, so I loved San Diego State, and it was right down the way, and it was a fun school, and a lot of my friends were going to go there. USC was good, and that was right down. UCLA was right down the street. You had Cal and Stanford in Northern California that were great academic institutions, and even if you just go a little east, you had like UNLV and Arizona State and University of Arizona. Pac-10 was still a thing.
Pac-10 was still not Pac-12.
Pac-10 was still a thing and a prominent conference, and the Rose Bowl was the pinnacle of college football. So I was looking regionally at what was possible for me, and my parents really elevated my vision. Yeah. First, they were like, "You're going to a school that is in the top 20 U.S. News and World Report rankings." Period.
No said. There it is. All right. Period. That cuts out quite a few. A nice little 90% of it.
Right. So I'm like, all right. Well, my options are limited if I want to play big time ball, which I did. Yeah. Mainly because I just needed to see if I could do it. That's always been a thing for me. If someone tells me you can't do it or you might not be able to, if there's doubt in my mind, I always lean into the doubt. I'm like, we're going to test this and we're going to know for sure. So I wanted to see if I could play at the highest level. So I came down to camp Stanford and Cal for me within what I was looking at.
Absolutely.
So I went to Stanford's camp like you probably did. People go to the camps to try to get the offer done. And I had a good camp, but I apparently performed too well at corner. So they asked me to play defense. They were like, "We'll offer you as a corner."
But you're not a DB like that.
No.
You play football, which is great. You're a football player, but that's not you.
And in my youthful pride, I knew I was the best running back ever. See? You couldn't tell me. You couldn't tell me otherwise. So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna commit to Cal, and I'm gonna prove to these guys every year I play them. I'm gonna rush for 200 yards on them in the rivalry game and stick it to them." So I turned down the offer at Stanford. And then Cal, while they had offered me, they found another running back they liked better. Okay. And they pulled my offer.
Really?
Yeah. It was before we had signed, before we committed. And so I ended up going on a visit to Northwestern. Okay. And it was just on the heels of Northwestern going to the Rose Bowl.
That was what? Darnell Autry Day? Yeah, there you go.
Just on the heels of that. So it all of a sudden just came on my radar. It's like, oh, this is another option. Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing the flood of purple at the Rose Parade, my parents were like, "Yeah, that's the kind of school you can go to." We would let that. So I went there on my visit, and I remember I vibed with everybody. The guys who were there on the visit were from around the country, which was great because the local schools were more Cali based or West Coast based. These are people from across the country. Felt like they were like minded, and at the end of it though. It had been 40 degrees the whole weekend, which for me, coming from Cali.
I 40 is not too bad. But
and recruiting visits are in January. So that's like world-class weather for Chicago in January. but myself was cold.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to the recruiting coordinator and being like, I love this place. I could see myself fitting here, but it's too cold. I just don't think I can do it. I can't play ball in this weather. And he looks at me, he goes, Jason, this was the coldest weekend of the year.
January, right?
If you could handle this, you could handle anything. And I was like, okay, bet I can do this. I bet I can do this. Lied to my face.
Of course.
That first winter, I was cursing his name.
Of course.
It's -10, sideways snow.
I mean, face falling off, walking to class.
I don't have clothes appropriate for this. I was so mad. But I'm glad it happened because Northwestern exposed me to culture in a bigger way than I realized. The coaching staff at the time, led by Randy Walker, God rest his soul, who was a old school head coach, but with a ton of heart and empathy, who I hated for my first 2 years and then loved my last 2. It was the right place for me to land to grow into a man. And I don't know that would have happened if I stayed close to home. And I think my parents knew that too. I think that's why they were pushing me to think bigger, to get out of my box, probably get away from,
the norm,
some of the ties to home, whether it was like a girl I liked or whatever it was, like push me out. So that things didn't pull me back down and in, and I'm grateful.
Oh, that's awesome. You seem to have always had kind of a solid structure, or rather mentor, to help you. Did you have that early on? Did you know that you needed a mentor to kind of help push you through and to be the man that you are today?
That's a great question. I didn't know it at first. It was just something that we did in my household. Again, credit to my mom and dad. Whenever I went out to do something, they would go and find somebody from their network who had done it before, who had done it at a high level, and they'd find a way to get me access to them. I'll give an example, and it's not like my parents were that influential at the time. Like this is a middle class family. Like my dad's working hard to build his State Farm agency. Like, he's become a prominent community leader now, but like at the time, he's just trying to hustle through his friend network. I remember I started Little League Baseball, and I got to be pretty good at it. And so he went and found Tommy Davis, who was a famous Dodgers player, who somehow he knew as a friend through a friend, golfing buddies, something like that. Next thing you know, I'm having private hidden lessons with Tommy Davis because my dad hustled it together. But that applied to everything else. When I decided I wanted to do creative arts and musical theater, they found me the best traveling theater company in the area, which was like right next door in Pomona. When I decided to take a foreign language, they're like, okay, you're going to become fluent, and we're going to go to France, and we're going to immerse you.
So important.
We're going to immerse you in a French environment, and you're going to become fluent. They were always about bringing that expertise to me, which is really, really remarkable. And so once I was an adult, I did it for myself. I always sought it out.
That's such an important piece. I feel like a lot of current, former, and future athletes, they don't know how to step into that and find a true mentor and understand even what that person is about and what they're there for. And it's like they do more. They're able to have conversations on your behalf without you even knowing. Those are the ones that open the doors up for you, And
well, I think it's tough too. I think it seems obvious to us now on the other side.
True.
When you're in it, I think it's so difficult for a few reasons. The first one is, as an athlete, whether it's true or not, we have the narrative of we worked hard and we earned all of it. I don't know if it's totally true, but we have that narrative. It's
pretty consistent.
So when it comes to what's next or having a mentor, people are scared to approach them because you don't have anything to offer. You feel like, well, I'm just going to take from them. I don't know their stuff. I'm just going to ask questions. I'm not going to be able to contribute anything. And that's like a little bit of a mental leap for the athlete who's used to coming in, producing, contributing, and that's the reason you get something back. So that part is hard because mentorship flows more in one direction than both ways. I think the second one is, we're usually obsessed with our craft. And like when I was in the league, I do wish I had done so much more to develop more mentors.
Absolutely.
Because at that time, people want to talk, whether you're in college or the pros, people want to talk to you. They'll take your call. They don't care. They're talking to an NFL player or a college football player. They're just enjoying that experience. They want to hear your stories, and they will offer up their resource and their network to you in a way that doesn't happen the moment you are not playing.
Exactly.
And I wish I knew that. I had teammates that did know it. Larry Fitzgerald.
Really?
He did that. I mean, I would stay after, and I would catch extra jugs, run extra routes, do extra film study, because I was obsessed with not getting fired again after getting
You've been
cut.
through it. Yeah.
Getting cut 9 times in my first year and a half, right?
We'll get to that.
Like, so I was obsessed with that. That's what I did. And
Yeah.
then I did some family stuff and some church stuff and all that on the side. Larry was meeting with business leaders and politicians.
He was putting it
He still
together
did all the work,
beforehand.
but he did all that other stuff into late nights. And I saw it all full circle in a moment this past September when I was a speaker at the Black Corporate Directors Conference, where I actually met Melody and and my relationship with her started, and that eventually led to
I heard
leading
about
Project
that.
Level.
Matter of Jabari Young, I believe it was on his.
He talked about it. And so I met her there, and I was a speaker on the panel. But the reason I was at Black Corporate Directors Conference because I was invited as a speaker. Larry was there because he's a Black corporate director.
Of course, exactly. It's different.
He's actually already at the pinnacle of corporate America. Like, when we are now investing and raising funds for this fund, Larry is one of the people that I came to and said, hey, have you looked at this? He's like, yeah, I passed on this. We did this. I got a return on this. I actually already sold this asset. Larry did all of this through building his network while he was playing. Yeah. And so while I did it well enough, obviously, and I'm grateful to every person who like gave me advice, helped me apply to B school, helped me transition, all that stuff, Larry did it at scale. And I advise that to every single young person I meet that's in college or an athlete at any level. Is like, use this moment to build your network, because this is not a meritocracy. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how hard you work, opportunities do not come because you are good or because you deliver. They come because someone likes you.
Someone likes you.
And teed you up.
Yep.
And Larry knew that, and he's been incredibly successful.
Oh man, no, that's somebody I'm definitely going to be working
you
hard
gotta
to
get Larry.
on. I got to get him
Larry.
on. So no, what you just spoke on, that is like the true message of what athletes need to understand. Because once you get to the other side, not everyone is so quick to pick up their phone call.
No, they want it.
And everyone's quick to.
They're uninterested.
Yeah, it's part of it is what have you done for me lately, but but no, you. I mean, that is like the one key message to anyone who was out there that's listening. That's the one that you need to benefit on the most, right there. Those relationships are important. So, but no, let's go ahead and get to it. When did you realize that? Hey, you got some.
I got a
game
shot.
to it. Yeah, you got a shot.
Man, when did I get it?
Because there's always that moment where it's like,
you're right.
You know, it's like, all right, I might be on the jug machine. I might be running routes. I might get 1 out of every 2 against the best player, and all of a sudden it's like, no, this is consistent now.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm seeing that next wave, that next route is that much quicker. First step is a go. Like, when was that for you?
Like, when did it click?
Yeah.
Quick? You know, it's interesting. I've never thought about it, and it's because maybe this is a little bit of how I think, both to the good and to a fault.
Yeah.
I am always focused on the next goal in front of me. I haven't been one, as much as my career has been great, and people probably think there was some grand strategy to developing it. I don't look very far over the horizon. Okay. I am always laser obsessed with the task in front of me, whether that's right now, raising and delivering an amazing fund that shifts the trajectory of women's sports and makes great money for our LPs. Or when I was a player, it was laser focused on making the team out of training camp and not getting cut and finding a way to have a consistent career. In college, it was about my grades and playing time and becoming all Big Ten. Like, I had like these near-term things that I was focused on. And so I don't know that I ever was like, oh, now this is the goal. This is the goal, or this long-term goal. Now I know I'm going to go get it. Yeah. Because it was always one step led to the next, but there probably was a moment. Okay. I remember an indoor practice in the winter, like in spring, which is damn near winter in Chicago.
Don't do us like that. We're not that bad.
At Northwestern, it was spring ball. We were playing on the indoor.
And you guys were right on the lake, too. Yeah.
And my junior year, it was an open running back competition. Because I moved to wide receiver in my first 2 years because we had Damian Anderson, who was a great running back. We had a stable of running backs behind them that were talented. Yep. So the coaches were like, you're talented enough to play, but we got to find a spot for you on the field. So they moved me to wideout. I was an okay wideout, but it actually ended up being good for me in my long-term career because I learned route running. It made me very versatile when I head to the league and when I became a starter. But you never know what God's doing. Like, don't be afraid to embrace the pivots. But when I came back to running back, it was a wide open running back competition. Okay. And we had, what were we doing? We were doing blitz drill. And it was all about stepping in the A-gap and who was going to hit the linebacker in the mouth.
Yep.
And
not everybody's willing to do that.
Not everybody has that in them.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I did, and I always have. I've always been willing to put my body through whatever it needs to go through to handle business. But, I stepped into that A-gap time after time. Every linebacker on our roster, I'd smack them in the chin. I'd smack them in the chin. I put my face mask on their chin, try to bust them open.
That's the game.
Yes, try to bust
especially
their chin.
Especially then, because you could allow to just smash.
Try to bust their chin open over and over again. And then every once in a while, I cut their legs out just to keep them honest. Yep. It was in that drill where I realized I think I have a mentality that other people don't. And I think I have what it takes to excel beyond this. I always knew I had the vision, I had the tools, I had the speed, all that stuff, but everybody else did too. I think it was that extra part where I was like, I got something in me that maybe other people don't have, and I think I'm going to take this. Yeah. And I think from there, getting the starting running back's job, everything flowed from there.
That's awesome. Clearly, you're figuring yourself out. You're opening up eyes to other coaches and programs in that next level. And it's so timely we're having this conversation, seeing that we just finished up the NFL draft. And so many conversations about the 144th pick and the first or second and all those different things. Tell me about your draft experience because I don't think enough people understand the process and what it means and how you still can make a team and make impact.
So it was only a 2-day draft back when I was coming through. It wasn't a 3-day draft. You have rounds 1 and 2, I think, on the first day, and then 3 through 7 on the second day. I knew I wasn't going to be a first-day pick. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I didn't run a fast enough 40.
Okay. What was that? What was the 40 time?
What was my official 40 time? Like 4.58, something like that. Okay. It was fine. Yeah. It was fine.
It should get you in the door.
It was fine. It was fine. But it wasn't good enough to get anybody's real attention. So, and even though I was productive in college, it was like they were questioning the scheme. It was like a shotgun scheme. Could he really run? Could he really play? There were lots of reasons. So I get it. But I did expect to be a middle rounds pick, like 4th round or so. Expected to go in the 4th round. And so first day I watched the draft with my girlfriend at the time in my college apartment. No fanfare, nothing like that. The second day, I go in and I'm getting ready now. It gets to the 4th round and I'm starting to be like, all right, this is when my agent said it was gonna happen. And we're sitting there and name after name gets called. Running backs get picked that I think I'm better than because of course we think we have to have a high view of ourselves if we're going to be successful.
Have to.
So I'm seeing cats get picked. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like I outrushed him head to head. Like what are we talking about? Like seeing all this stuff go. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm just going to keep my faith in God. I'm going to keep my faith in God. I believe I'm going to land where I'm supposed to land. And then towards the end of the draft, I started finally getting calls. But it would be a team that would call and say, hey, we may take you with the next pick.
What is up with that? Because I've heard this consistently. It's like, we might take you. Like, I don't want to hear that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have the pick up in 3 picks. We may take you. You're one of the people on our board. Just letting you know. I think now, having been on the other side, it's a tactic to set you up to recruit you as a free agent.
Okay.
They're like, they liked me during the draft. They just couldn't take me for this reason. It's like an early way to like keep undrafted free agents warm and make them feel good about you or like attach their mind to you. I think it's that. Maybe they really were like, we don't know who we're going to go, but you might be the person, so be by the phone. I don't know. Maybe they were genuine. Okay. But eventually it ends with disappointment. You're disappointed at the end of the day, especially once you've gotten those phone calls only to watch the pick go somewhere else. And it's this constant up and down that honestly prepares you for the league.
Sure does.
It's a microcosm example of what it's like to be in the league, no matter what level you play at. It is a series of ups and downs on the biggest stage with your family watching, and you need to learn how to emotionally regulate that to be successful. So it's a nice crucible to go through on your way into the league. But it ends in disappointment. And then, after all that disappointment, you then have to make arguably the most important decision you've made in your life. Where am I going to start my career? Because now the decision was going to be made for you. Suddenly, you have to make the decision. Teams are calling and saying, here's the offer. We'd like to bring you in. We'd like to bring you into camp. We'd like to bring you here, here, here. and you're on the phone with your agent, like, which one is best? I don't know. What's the roster look like? You got to do all this research suddenly that you didn't know.
You become almost the agent. You're you're the sidekick to the agent.
Exactly.
You're like, actually, this makes more sense to me.
me. I feel this. Like, this guy I liked. And it feels like, and you got to move quick.
Yeah.
Because the offer's there, and then it's gone. Because they're going to make sure they fill out their spots. You don't have a day. You can't sleep on it. You're going to make that decision in a matter of 2 hours max at the end of the draft. So you got to put your disappointment to the side, compartmentalize that crap, and then focus. Yeah. And again, a nice microcosm for how the NFL works and the skill set you need in life to succeed and push through tough things. And I don't think I made the right decision coming out, actually.
Really?
And it's I went to the Niners right out of camp.
Right out.
And it was the decision that felt the safest to me. The roster didn't have anybody at the running back of like a big name, and so I was like, okay, I can find my way in there and compete a little bit. You know, they liked me. They put a good offer on the table. It's back in California, so maybe there's some familiarity and some connection where I can like flow with it a little bit. But my gut was telling me something else throughout the process. My gut was telling me the Atlanta Falcons through the whole process.
Nice ways
away.
When
I prayed, that's what I felt. And what I've learned now, and it's actually something I didn't learn until I was an executive at the Commanders, actually. Is that sometimes your gut is telling you about data and information that your subconscious is picking up that you're not logically picking up. And it's worth listening to if you have a strong lean in one direction.
I got you.
If your gut keeps pulling you somewhere, you don't follow it willy-nilly. You got to engage data. You got to look at the facts. But when your gut pulls you one place consistently over and over, it's probably because there's something you're not seeing with your conscious eye, but that you're feeling and seeing in your subconscious. And so I felt like I should have chosen Atlanta, but I chose San Francisco instead. And of course, as things go, like I was in San Francisco for a cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee.
I came in the middle of training camp. I came in from 2-a-day practice. They soft now. They only got 1-a-days.
Oh, man. It's so nice. It's not all the heat, cold, whatever it is. Wow.
They barely a hit now. It's great. It's a good life now. All right. But I come in from the first of the 2-a-day practices. My name was off my locker. All my stuff was in a black trash bag. Wow. There's a yellow sticky note telling me where to put my playbook. And what time the taxi was coming for me.
Wow.
That was it.
No Uber, no nothing. Just here you go.
That was it. So I'm like dealing with that loss, that sense of rejection that you feel in those moments. And most of us have not felt that in our professional career or in our football careers to that point. We've always been the best of the best. So I'm dealing with that. And I need to say goodbye to all these people I built bonds with over the last several months in the locker room.
Because you're in it with them.
Hey, man, they just let me know I'm out.
Wow. It's like, what is this?
Like, what? Like, mind-blowing emotional balance to do in the moment. Again, a good skill for the rest of life to manage.
Absolutely.
But I get home. I'm with my parents. Like, I'm in my parents' house. I don't have nowhere to live. I'm out of college. I don't have no money. So I'm at home with my parents, figuring out what's next. I remember a couple of days into it, I was with my mom. She was going out to run some errands. And I was like, let's just pray over your situation. We prayed. And I was just like, all right, whatever's supposed to be is supposed to be. And I really released my agenda. I was like, I'm going to go with whatever tees up, whatever God, the universe tees up. I'm going to roll with it. I remember we said amen, and I get a call from my agent. He was like, congratulations, you're an Atlanta Falcon. You're going to join their practice squad. You're going to start the season down there.
Glory to God.
Yes.
Right.
I was like,
it's one of those,
So, like, my gut had informed me that there was a place that had been prepared for me from the jump. And I didn't have enough courage, maybe, to trust it at the time. But God, the universe is faithful. And I ended up in the spot I was supposed to be.
Exactly where you were supposed to be.
Now, don't get me twisted. I got cut, 4 different times by the Falcons, off and on the practice squad, ran out of money, lived with my aunt and uncle in Lithonia because I couldn't afford rent.
You were going through it. But you were learning yourself and learning about life.
It was a really important time for me.
It's people don't talk about this stuff enough, about what happens behind the scene. No matter if it's football, baseball, basketball, there's a grind. You still have to live off of what is provided. Not everybody is getting $40, $50 million contracts.
Very few people.
Very
few people. It's a small elite group who they've earned it to an extent, but the rest of us, you got to work through it. Yeah, I think, like I said, I got cut 9 times in my first year and a half.
Yeah.
So I had to get cut more than that. So once with them, then I got cut a couple times with the Browns. So at least 6 times with the Falcons. And there's a few things that happen there that have helped me in the rest of my life, because I think one of the things that's a beauty of the NFL locker room is like you're in your own family and community.
Yep.
You're there for each other in your professional and personal lives. You're mutually supportive. Even though there's competition and positions and all that, it's a mutually supportive environment. Yep. Your families hang out. Your social spheres go together. But when you're cut, you're out.
You're out.
You're out. And so what do you do if all of your worth, your social network, all that is built into the team? You either fall apart or you find other sources of strength. And so I learned at that time I needed to build sources of strength that were not tied to football or just not tied to my career. I needed friends who cared about me outside of football. And so I met those people through church, like people I met around the block. Like the dude who sold me my used car in Atlanta, who I went to, is one of my best friends to this day.
Really?
To this day.
Still stay in touch? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my friend because of football. It was my friend because we just fooled with each other. We were both in our grind phase.
Yep, exactly.
At the time. I lived with my family. I learned how to use the resources and community around me to help me have a perspective on life that allowed me to go back and be confident every day. And then I learned how to keep my confidence in the face of failure, which was a really important thing to do in those moments. Because again, most people haven't faced it to that point.
Yep.
And that first time you get cut, you can lose your confidence in a downward spiral. Because then, this, when you're on the field, if there's somebody who is not confident, you smell that.
You smell it, and you attack it. And you out for
blood. I'm crushing you.
I'm out for blood.
I am ending your career today.
Yes, exactly. Let me expedite this.
Let me just go ahead and help you out. Let me go ahead and help you out. You're not supposed to be here.
No.
So you have to show up confident, ready to play at any moment. And so I learned what helped me do that.
Yep.
And for me, that was watching my film. Anytime I was allowed, when my badge worked, when I was allowed in the film room, I'd let traffic let out, and I would just watch over, especially if I had a bad practice or something. I would watch film over and over again. I didn't have a lot of NFL film at the time. Maybe it was just 2 plays from practice where I made the right read and gashed the starting defense for a 20-yard run. Yeah. Or if I had nothing good that week in practice, maybe it was looking at my college film and watching over and over and over again.
And just keeping yourself immersed in that.
And just watching myself be excellent. Yeah. And eventually, I would notice my body would relax. Because, we don't know how much tension we hold in our body. My body would relax. That was my first cue that I was getting somewhere. Yeah. And then the narrative in my mind would change from a question of do I belong to a declarative statement of I do belong. Yep. And the moment that switched in my head, I knew I was good. Yeah. I was going to be good the next day. I was going to be good for that next week, and I could carry on. And those are 2 things that I carried over for the rest of my career beyond football. It was keeping a diverse set of people around me. Yep. Who could call out my blind spots, who could support me in moments, who were not tied to my vocation and profession. So I felt I could trust it. I always had trusted people around me. And then when I got to business school, I didn't know anything, much less compete with these folks who have had proper corporate careers for the last 5 to 10 years. I know what a 3 technique is and a cover 2 shell that's unhelpful in accounting.
These numbers just 1, 2, and 3. That's not going to help when we're talking, spreadsheets and
not helpful.
And balance sheets.
And so I'm competing with folks who have been immersed in that for internships. So I had to find ways to keep my confidence. And when I got to McKinsey, I was not a great day 1 associate. Okay. I had to find ways to keep my confidence while I built that skill set, and I did versions of the same thing that I did when I was a player. Now there's no film, but I would write down my strengths. I would repeat them to myself in the mirror, or I would look at them before I went into a big meeting or before I started a new work stream or whatever it was. I would read my strengths to remind me what I'm good at. And I might be going to do something that I'm not good at because, building a PowerPoint slide was not my skill set.
That's not the skill set.
But that's what I had to do that day. But I would remind myself of what I was good at so that I went in with the mindset of greatness, and that allowed me to excel.
You seem to, while you were playing, you seem to already start to build your plan. I get that normally you're focused, dead focused on what's going on, but around that dead time that you had when you're not on the field, you started to kind of map out what was next and start to. How did you start to just grab those bits and pieces and just start to formulate and say, all right, here's something I think I want to get into?
Yeah, well, I think it was driven by necessity for me. So the first thing, I never forgot a conversation my dad had with me, because my dad is very no nonsense. When you are out of high school, you are not to be supported anymore. Right? So
how much money you got? You gotta make it work.
I remember being at home after I got cut by the Niners, and my dad saying, hey, I think I'm about to buy some Subway franchises. You want to manage one so you can have a job? I was like, oh, absolutely not. That's not for me. Now, that could be a great gig in the long run. I
was going to say.
Owning franchises,
absolutely.
Great.
I was just going to come back to that. I'm like, hey, hold on.
It's actually great.
Yes.
At the time, that was a strong no for me.
I get it.
A strong
but its ego probably played the most.
So I was like, I am absolutely going to figure out what else I could do when I have time, because I was inches away from managing the Subway, and I did not want to do that with my dad, even though that probably would have made me pretty wealthy. But Junior
Bridgman,
I'm trying to tell you.
Junior Bridgman.
I'm trying to tell
let's
you.
Be real.
I'm trying to tell you. It's actually a good business. But I didn't get it, and I was like, all right, I don't want to be in that situation, so I am going to think about all these other things. So it was that, and it was also my curiosity. I'm a naturally curious person. I like learning. I will dive deep. I will nerd out on some random topic when I discover what it is, that it might have some application to the world or my life or whatever it is. So I'm intellectually curious. And so anytime there was something, I hear about a new career, or I'd meet somebody that offered to mentor me, I would dive into their world. And I'd do an internship. I'd do a shadowing thing. I'd do a practicum. I'd study. Like when I got into studying my faith, like I started doing theology classes with the team chaplain. Like I would do all sorts of different things to like try to start to build myself.
Figure out what that was.
And that curiosity tended to lead to opportunities in the future. So I do encourage people to be curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do encourage people to be curious. Don't necessarily try to follow a pattern. Be curious, and don't be afraid to invest time in things that will build your skill set, even if you're not exactly sure where you're going to build that skill set. Again, that gets back to that gut thing. If I'm drawn to something, if my curiosity is piqued towards something, it's probably something the universe is trying to tell you about that and your future that you can't comprehend. So you should lean in a little bit.
Lean into it. I mean, that's how this podcast kind of started off. You know, just following that. Like, this is a passion project. I love to serve people. I love to help people understand and learn. It's like, what better way to do that than to hear it from people's mouth directly who've done it in that space. So
and look where it could. Look what it turned into.
Exactly. We're right here sitting with each other. Kind of want to go back a little bit. Browns, Cardinals, Falcons, 49ers. Did I miss anyone? That's it.
That's it, yeah.
Those four. What was the best experience that you had playing on field?
Obviously, I loved my time with the Falcons. We went to the NFC Championship my rookie year. Mike Vick was the quarterback. Warwick Dunn was the starting running back. He talk about amazing mentor. Still to this day.
Still to this day.
Mentors me. Still to this day mentors me.
Warwick Dunn.
Amazing man.
And Mike Vick, now coach.
Yes.
You know, like, I mean,
it's just great. Both of those guys were such inspiring figures to me. They really looked out for me too. Took care of me in my off and on period. So I had this great experience of being a part of a championship caliber squad with once in a generation talent. That's amazing. It was very cool. Then with the Browns, I got the chance to be a real contributor to the team. Like, that's where I had the most play time. I settled myself as a, quality third down back in the NFL, and that felt good to really see my name considered up there with great players across the league, role players, albeit, but still.
Historic organization as well.
And a great organization where the fans and that community, they are obsessed and in love with that team.
Sure.
Like, you could lose for decades and you're still going to sell out that stadium because they are passionate about it. And I liked being a part of that grassroots sort of community. And I had the best time there. I mean, we had at least one good winning season there. When I was there with Romeo Crennel, we went 10-6, I think, in 2007. And that was a great experience, too, to bring that kind of joy to a fan base who had been hungry for it for a long time. So that was fun, too. And I really was part of the community there. And I felt like football had a purpose, which I still believe to this day it does. And then in Arizona, I got to really be a leader. My teammates elected me team captain. My teammates elected me labor union leader. I got to help the coaches think about the shape of the roster. I got to think about game planning. I got to really develop and coach the guys in the running backs room. Not necessarily on the field. I mean, they were much more talented than me. I taught them about the X's and O's, taught them how to read defense and stuff like that. But in life. Like the way I would approach life and all that, and all those guys have gone on to be great men. I'm so proud of all of them. One of them worked for me at the Commanders, Tim Hightower.
Nice.
Amazing family. Like just like they all did better than me, to be honest. So I got a chance to be a leader. And that maybe is the strongest part of my experience in the NFL. So even though I played less, my influence and impact was probably more there. And for me, that established a knowledge of my strengths and what I bring in a way that sort of led to the rest of my career. So I loved all of them. That's a short way. That's a long way of saying I loved all of them.
No, I love it. No, play for those teams. It's come down to that point where you're in the locker for the last time. They aren't taking the nameplate off. This is your decision. You're taking the shoes off for the last time. No, when you're sitting there in that moment, it's like, what?
It's crazy.
Tell me that process for you.
I'll tell you how I got there, which was shocking to me, because I got to Arizona. Our quarterback was Kurt Warner. Great player, Hall of Famer, had gone through his journey. I mean, amazing journey of faith and resilience to make it to the league and become MVP caliber quarterback. My first year there, I remember we were playing the Vikings on a Monday night. Both teams only had like 1 or 2 losses. Like we were good that year. We were good. It's the year after the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl. So we're sitting there on a Monday night. We are beating there. Like when I tell you we running through these cats,
just giving it to them.
We are beating there, and I am enjoying this. I haven't been on that many good teams in my career. I am having a absolute blast. And I see Kurt on the bench, just sort of like sullen, sort of detached.
Really?
Just sitting there like not really into it. And I go and sit by him, and I was like, hey, like what's going on? This is great. You're playing great. Like we're balling. Like what is happening? He was like, come on, sit. It's like brought me in the office, sat me down, and was like, he's like, Jason, at some point, what's outside of football is going to be more interesting to you than what's inside of football. He's like, right now I'm thinking about this nonprofit that I just started that's bringing sports, especially football, to rural India, to do, infrastructure work there, to bring water to those communities, to bring education to those communities, to convince the population to stop femicide, so the killing of female children or mistreatment of female children. He was like, I want to bring this to that community. Impact. And I'm thinking about the business I started, the nonprofit I started there. I'm thinking about how it's all going to go in the middle of the football.
Just the middle of the football.
Middle of the football game. And I remember
having one of those games where you just doing everything.
Killing it.
Yeah, Hall of Fame.
He's killing it. Yeah. So I remember simultaneously thinking like, wow, that's incredibly inspiring, and I am not as good a human as Kurt Warner. And at the same time, like, this man is crazy. Yeah. Because this is the best I've ever been a part of. Like, what
the levels were different. The
what
levels
are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I remember simultaneously thinking those two things, and then fast forward a year later. His words never left me, and he retired after that year. That was his last season. That next year, we are in Carolina playing against the Panthers, and I'm having a great game on special teams. It was a close game, so it wasn't a blowout, but I'm having a great game on special teams. I had like 6 tackles, something like that. And I had just lit up the punt returner on the sideline, like scooped him, put him down on the sideline, like one of those plays. So I get to the bench, and everybody's like high-fiving, hitting my helmet, and I'm just like, let me just sit down. And like a young guy on the team comes up to me. He's like, what's up, man? Like, you blew dude up. You're just sitting here. You're not even celebrating.
You got to be lit. Like,
Yeah, you're supposed to be up. I was like, you know what? Like, what time do you think we're going to get home tonight? Because, like, it's a long flight. The time changed. It's a late game.
You're in your Kurt Warner mode.
It's going to be like 3 a.m. I'm going to be tired. I got this thing the next day. And I immediately realized, oh, I'm Kurt now.
You're Kurt.
And I didn't have as much specificity as what I was thinking about next. I knew I was going to go to business school. I knew I'd been doing an internship at Arizona State in their ticket office, selling tickets. I had been doing ministry stuff on the side. I had been doing a bunch of stuff. So I didn't have as much specificity as Kurt, but I knew that I was already looking beyond. And I knew it was time. I knew it was time. Now, in hindsight, now that I know how hard it is to make $1 million a year in the real world, I would have signed that 2-year contract and played 2 more years and been like, my destiny gonna have to wait 2 more years. I had no idea how hard it was to earn that kind of income in the round. That's why, everything aside, it doesn't matter how the NFL treated me, and the NFL treated me great.
Yeah.
I had amazing coaches and mentors, even folks that cut me. I am grateful to each of them because I always got cut, maybe minus the first one. Yeah. I always got cut in a gracious way, respecting my dignity, people that cared about me. Yep. I will always appreciate, but even more so, because there are very few places that can give such early financial momentum to a young man, and a young man like me, that can power the rest of your life. Your decision-making is different when you're able to make, and I did save money during my career.
That's good.
When you're able to make, and so I could have saved more because I still made some stupid decisions, but I saved money. And when I went into business school, when I landed at McKinsey, I was bolder. Yeah. I was bolder than other people were. I was willing to take more risks. Why? Because I didn't need the job at the time. And when you are making a decision, you're pursuing something out of want or desire instead of need, you are more of a risk taker. You step up to the plate more often. And risk is rewarded in corporate America and in business building.
Yes, it is.
And oftentimes we, whatever you want to imply on we, don't come from communities that have a bunch of safety net resources, that have a bunch to fall back on. And so we are the meal ticket for other folks. Yep. And so you are not willing to take risks because it could affect so many people. Yep. I'm grateful I had money, and my parents had done well, so they didn't need me either, and I could be free to pursue something with a ton of upside. And I don't think I'd be here today if I hadn't had the NFL to give me that aggressive mentality that we often don't have.
No, you're spot on. I mean, the gems that they're getting, and myself is just like, that's exactly what it is now. Like, we're on the other side and we're walking through it. So, expedite yourselves through the learning.
I wish I would have learned some lessons from other folks.
For sure. So, obviously, took the shoes off for the last time. Now you're on the other side. Like you said, it's a scary space. It's a space, but you were able to learn and kind of put things in practice before, things, and you were able to learn. Take me through that kind of process. It doesn't have to be extensive, but B school. What did you do? What was kind of first step going to B school?
I mean, B school was a crazy time for me. I just had my first child, and my daughter was a month old when I started B school.
Dad. Oh, so you really jumped into the second half. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's all a work in process.
But it was a lot of transition. And my response is, I think what most athletes would do is, I don't necessarily have the talent or know-how that the other people had that were going into B school, but I can't outwork everybody. And so I did. I did the extra office hours. I took on special projects. I did everything. I invested everything in it. And again, probably not great for the balance of my personal life, but I put everything in. And by the time I got to summer internship time, which is a competitive process on campus, all the companies descend on campus. You're competing with your peers. And I got the same feedback from every friend. I decided to go into consulting because when I got to business school, I realized how much there was about the world I didn't know. My view had been very narrow. As much as my parents tried to expose me to a lot of things, their view was still limited in scope. And like, a great paying job was like doctor or lawyer. Like, that was about all we knew, right?
Pretty much doctor, lawyer, that was in the community. That was all we knew.
That was all we knew that could get you, a very wealthy, successful life. And so the idea of the business world and things like consulting and investment banking and climbing the corporate ranks, and like, I had no idea about any of it. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole world out here. And then I'm intellectually curious. And I'm a bit of a nerd, so I was like, well, I want to learn all of this. So how can I push out my decision?
Of course.
Go into consulting. Okay. Because consulting is going to expose me to a bunch of different things. I'm going to see businesses of different industries and types, and I'm going to see all the different roles within industry. I'm going to see everything from real estate to finance to marketing to starting a new company. I'm going to see regions around the world. The way to extend my education and to continuously scratch my intellectual curiosity is going to consulting. So that's why I decided to do that, which was a good decision. I got the same feedback from every consulting firm I interviewed with. It was some version of, you're surprisingly good at math for an NFL player. Which I am.
Calculating yardage
which I am,
and
which
stats
I am.
and contracts.
I'm just a nerd. I just loved it before. Like, I loved calculus in high school, like stuff like that. So I'm just a nerd. I'm just a nerd. So I was good at math and surprisingly good, given my background. You have great leadership stories. The only people with better leadership stories about what they accomplished with their lives or leading teams or the military veterans. Yeah. But you have great leadership stories. But you are really raw. You don't speak the business language. And we think you are going to be a terrible day one associate.
Really?
That was the feedback.
Not bad.
Every firm. It's accurate. It's accurate.
I was going to say, if it's
not wrong,
truthful, but at least now you know what you got to work with.
It's not wrong. That meant for every firm except one, that was a turn down. For McKinsey, that was still an offer. And I think it's a little bit of the McKinsey hubris, being the best for so many decades, that they're like, we can take that raw product and we can turn it into a gem. We can turn it into a gem. And I actually agree with this hiring philosophy. They're like, we want to hire somebody that we think could be an exceptional partner one day, even if they're a terrible day one associate. And so I got hired. And it was the right choice. It was the right one. It was the right fit for me and right fit for the firm. Because I was, in fact, a terrible day one associate. Because what matters day one is how quickly can you build a cash flow model in Excel? How clean and neat a PowerPoint can you make? How great a chart can you make to show this complex set of data?
Who knows?
Know any of that.
Especially nowadays. Now it's a little easier because you got AI basically
generative AI. Generative AI can do all of that stuff. I would have been a rock star.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead, I'm sitting there like, F2, that, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this done. I'm never going to get this done. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But it was good for me because, again, it made me pull the skill set that I had to learn when I was an NFL player of how to keep my confidence in the face of failure and pull that into this world. And what I had learned, which is it's about the story you tell and the mentors you have. Yeah. Because once I realized I could be good at this down the road, even if I wasn't today, it was about consistently telling my story at McKinsey, who I was, what I was good at, what I was working on, and what I wanted to be. That got people interested in me. And then it was a bunch of the military partners, men and women, who took me under their wing. My career took off at McKinsey. I got elected partner 3 years from being in business school, which is very fast at that firm. And it's because people looked out for me.
Those people were in your corner fighting.
That's it.
I love that. So you go through McKinsey Consulting, you're there, then you happen to find your way back into the NFL. The first black president of any NFL team at that time. And then not only that, you're taking this organization over during, I mean, you had, when I tell you, when I was doing my own research, I'm like, bro, like, my man took it during the pandemic. He had a whole name change. He had
a bunch of allegations and lawsuits and investigations.
What was day one like there? Since we're talking about day one.
Day one was great. It was like
still
all
this,
all this
Magic
congratulatory
came out
stuff.
And,
like, it was amazing. Day two was the problem.
Man.
Day two, I get a call from the Washington Post. And I think it's part of the congratulatory first black team president, blah, blah, blah. And so I put on my persona, my business persona.
You're ready. You're like, I'm built for
like, this is great. And I'm like, I'm so excited to be on with you. I know the relationship with the team has not been the best in the past. I'm ready to reset the relationship. They were like, yeah. Do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know this person? And I'm like, I haven't met anybody yet. This is a virtual environment in COVID.
Yeah.
I meet my top team via Zoom tomorrow or Microsoft Teams tomorrow. Can you give me a week and maybe I'll give you a on-the-record statement? They were like, story runs at 7 a.m. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Story ran in the morning as I'm meeting my top team. And it's like the Hollywood Squares of Microsoft Teams. And I thought, not only do I have a crisis now on my hands, which I had helped many companies through as a consultant. That's kind of my reputation. It was my reputation within consulting. Bring him in at your toughest moments. He's a straight shooter. He'll give you clear thinking, So I knew the playbook to navigate this sort of crisis, and especially when it's around people and culture, I knew that playbook. But I didn't know how to execute that with a potentially compromised top team. And it kicked off a year and a half where I turned over 85% of the organization.
Wow, that's
completely
just new.
Flipped the organization. Yeah. And not because everybody was bad either. Not everybody were bad people. There were some bad eggs that needed to go, some really bad folks, but it wasn't really that. It was we needed to not only remove people that were a drag on culture, but we had to establish a new modern way of working that was going to grow the business for the future. It had to bring in different talent. We had to start to measure things. We had to use data. And that required a different type of leader, and even really good people who maybe in normal circumstances would have been on board. When you've been in a tough environment for that long, it's hard for you to shift. And sometimes it's just better to get a fresh start. So if I could do anything, I would go back and I would do it faster.
Yeah, okay.
I would do it even faster, even though it would be more disruptive.
Yeah.
I would do it faster. But then we set on a great trajectory. Even before the sale of the team, we started to grow revenue that had been declining for years. We were able to make progress on the stadium that actually got finalized. I
just saw that today. Yes, that's awesome. Back in D.C.
I'm so proud. We started that work in faith and hope alone.
Man.
Over 4.5 years ago. And I drove that every day until the day I left, driving that to get the Senate bill over the line in Congress to get the approvals done.
Congratulations with that. I know when you probably got the call and they were just like,
I'm so proud. And they got it over the line with the mayor's office, and we had started to structure that deal a few years ago. I am so proud of that. But I had all these things that we had already started doing, and then by the end, we grew revenue there, local revenue, this part we can control, by more than 50%. We expanded EBITDA, which is profits, by more than 9 times. Sold the team to the new ownership in the process, and stayed on and transitioned that ownership team over the course of 2 seasons into what is now a great operating model for them. And I'm really, really, it's actually unbelievable where we came from. The few folks who were there in those early days in my core team know just what we were up against.
Nobody ever knows what's behind making the sausage, but it's like you get to see the finished product.
And it taught me a few things about leadership too, that not everybody's going to understand what you have to do when you're leading through something that complex and that messy. But when you are going to do something of big change, not everybody's going to be happy. And you have to be able to have clarity, know the end result, even if the near-term stuff doesn't look like it's getting you there. You have to have a vision that is unwavering. You have to remind people of it. You have to keep people on board, and the moment they're not, you got to be willing to let them walk, no matter how talented. I learned so much about how to lead and guide an organization, including how detailed you need to be in the finances, how you need to manage costs, all these different things that have put me where I am now, and it's part of why Project Level, beyond Melody's reputation, Ariel's reputation, but one of the reasons that we are sought after by companies looking for investors in this space, teams, leagues, ancillary businesses, is because we have actually done the work. And people in the sports industry really know what we did at the Commanders, and they know where we started. And so we have seen and faced everything that you can face when running a sports franchise. We've worked with all the adjacent businesses. We know how to do deals with them and make them successful. And so that on-the-ground, hands-on operating experience is very valuable to these companies. And it's such a blessing that we've had extremely strong deal flow to the fund because of it. You never know where all these little things, these arduous, tedious moments are going to come back around and benefit you, and I never would have anticipated it would be this.
I mean, it's taken you all of that to go around in a circle, to have the highs, the lows, just like you said in football. All those learnings, the ups, the downs, the getting cut, the new team 2 hours later getting, all those things, they all play a role. And now it's taken you, it's brought you to this space we're in now, here at Ariel Investment with Project Level, where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where your focus is mainly around women's sports, advocating in that space. I'm a huge advocate for women's sports. There's so much opportunity. It's I mean, women's volleyball, I believe, LOV, that, what they just kicked off. You've got Nike Nationals that takes place right here in Chicago, 13,000 girls here in the city of Chicago, right? Like, it's just building. We just talked about flag football. Tell me a little bit more about what Project Level and what you're getting into with that.
Project Level aims to bring real institutional capital, and not just money, but intellectual capital, relationship capital to women's sports at a moment where the business is finally catching up to the quality that's been on the court, pitch, and field for a long time. There are big funds that have invested in men's sports at scale. Arctos, Redbird, all the big names in PE, Carlisle, 6th Street, Avenue Capital, all these folks have invested in sports. But they've done it mainly in men's sports, and they've put most of their money there. And it makes sense that their operational expertise and their influence would go to those big investments too. So they've invested in women's sports, but in a small way. We, on the other hand, want to be the folks who come in with that kind of capability to support women's sports. Because if they professionalize faster, the quality of the experience for the women is better, the quality of the experience for the fans is better, and this whole industry that has already taken off in valuations that show no signs of stopping in their growth, which is going to be great for our investors and anyone who invests in the space, but the underlying businesses are going to be stronger, and that's what the whole industry deserves, and that's better for our investors. We can run profitable franchises and leagues in the meantime before they transact. And then there are great women's funds that have proven the case. Monarch Collective is a smaller fund that invested in Angel City when the price of purchasing Angel City Football Club in LA was $2 million. They sold end of last year, or end of 2 years ago, for $250 million. Those are returns that any of us would take.
Absolutely.
Any of us would take. And so they took that bold bet, and they've proven that this is a real asset class as far as investing goes, but they're smaller scale, and they can't make as big investments as we plan to make. And so we want to take that same model and make investments that go to the max of what is allowable for these clubs. Really lean in with operational experience. Invest in more than just the teams and leagues, but all the businesses that support them, analytics firms, search firms, NIL companies.
Oh, my goodness.
All of the stuff that makes the entire flywheel of women's sports professionalized and strong, because these valuations are going to keep going up for the next 15 years. But we want them to go up for the next 50 years. And by professionalizing the industry at this moment, giving them the capacity and know-how that passed over women's sports because it was irresponsibly an afterthought towards most of the big names, we now want to be able to bring that and see this be a sustainable thing for a really long time.
And you're doing that not only alongside Melody Hobson, which is incredible. I mean, I'm sure she's been a huge advocate and resource to just
she's inspiring,
wealth of knowledge.
Man. She's inspiring. I mean, her background, like what she came from to be the co-CEO of Ariel, to be the voice that she's been in running a very successful company in a way that is to its core values-based, is remarkable. Her work ethic is what has inspired me the most to date. Someone of her accomplishment should not and can't and doesn't have to work like she's, but she believes in this fund, and she is just one of those people that no matter what you put your hand to, it will be successful. And so she is showing me what it looks like to role model work ethic. And then she's showing me what it's like to really navigate the network that she rolls with. I mean, this is the craziest set of pitch meetings I've ever had. The people I'm meeting with are out of this world, successful, thoughtful, and engaged. And I feel really privileged to watch her navigate that world. And I see myself in that world down the road, and I have a great example and role model to follow after.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, this story is incredible. I mean, there's so many gems and nuggets that you've been able to share, about your journey that so many others need to hear and understand. I got one final question. I know we got to get out of here. One final question is, speaking back to that old 18, 19, 20-year-old, what would be that piece of advice that you would give to that person then, as you've gone through so much already, whether relationship, fatherhood, being a husband, whatever it is it may come to you, that you would just deliver yourself and say, this is how you need to prepare for what's next and what's to come?
That's a good question. I would say work like the outcomes all depend on you, but know that they don't. That ultimately you are going to land in a good spot because of the plan and purpose behind you. So work as though it all depends. Work as though if you don't do every little thing, it all falls apart and it all fails. That's what you should have in your mindset when you're working on it. But rest in the faith. There's a plan and a purpose that elevates you, that elevates the people around you, that turns your moments of mistake and pain and irresponsibility into beauty and power and wealth and impact for the people you care about. That's what I would tell them. I would work like it all depends on you, but know that it doesn't.
A word. Guys, a man of faith, a father, a former athlete, retired, who has made an incredible transition. I hope you guys took these gems and actually apply them to your journey. With that being said, the Second Half Podcast, appreciate you guys. Like, follow, subscribe. Oh, yeah, be sure to grab some merch. We got him some.
Yes,
so we had to make sure you got some new merch.
We got
you with a Second Half hoodie, of course.
Perfect.
You know, we got you. Got to take care of you.
Perfect.
You know, just for those cold days when you're in Chicago, although it is summertime shot right now. So we're right here. No. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Jason, appreciate you again, my man. Thank you, my man. I'm excited. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like, now you've moved up into like my Mount Rushmore of post-athlete transition. So you're holding the spot right now.
I don't know if I deserve that, but I'll take it.
I'll tell you this right now. The other spots currently are Junior Bridgman, Magic Johnson, just one other person, and of course my mentor Vaughn Bryant. And
Vaughn's great.
Put Steve Pammin in there, but you know. They're just some great guys.
I'll take it, man. That's an honor. That group.
Yeah.
That's a great group.
Well, no, I appreciate you again. Thank you all for tuning in. We're out. Peace.